What happens when a federal judge looks a music mogul in the eye and delivers the 3 words that end everything? That's exactly what has the entertainment world reeling as Sean Diddy Combs faces the ultimate consequence in American criminal justice. The gavel falls, the courtroom goes silent, and the man who once commanded billion-dollar deals and A-list parties now sits in federal custody hearing words that seal his fate forever. From penthouse suites to a potential death chamber, how did one of hip-hop's most powerful figures reach this devastating conclusion? What evidence could be so damning that it warrants the ultimate penalty? What crimes so heinous that even wealth and fame couldn't save him? Stay tuned as we explore the shocking reality of how federal death sentences work and what led to this earth-shattering moment that changes everything. The reality of federal death penalty cases. The federal death penalty remains legal under United States law, though it is reserved for only the most serious federal crimes involving murder, terrorism, espionage, or large-scale drug trafficking operations that result in death. Federal death penalty cases are extremely rare, with only a handful prosecuted each decade. Sean Diddy Combs currently faces racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation charges in federal court. These charges, while serious and carrying potential life imprisonment, do not typically include death penalty specifications under current federal statutes. The federal crimes that can result in death penalty prosecutions include murder for hire, killing federal officers, terrorism resulting in death, and certain drug trafficking offenses that cause fatalities. Legal experts note that expanding death penalty charges requires evidence of specific violent crimes that result in death. Questions arise about what additional evidence or charges might theoretically transform a federal case from life imprisonment potential to death penalty consideration. The implications could suggest that federal investigations sometimes uncover evidence of more serious crimes than initially charged. Federal prosecutors have discretion in seeking death penalty charges, but must demonstrate that alleged crimes meet specific statutory requirements and that aggravating factors outweigh mitigating circumstances. Federal death penalty procedures and requirements. Federal death penalty prosecutions require approval from the highest levels of the Department of Justice, including review by the Attorney General, due to the gravity and finality of potential outcomes. This approval process involves extensive legal and procedural analysis. The legal standards for federal death penalty cases are extremely high, requiring proof beyond reasonable doubt of specific violent crimes that resulted in death, along with aggravating factors that justify the ultimate penalty under federal statutes. Federal death penalty cases involve specialized legal procedures, including bifurcated trials where guilt and penalty phases are conducted separately, extensive jury selection processes, and mandatory appeals that can extend proceedings for years or decades. Legal experts note that federal death penalty cases are among the most complex and expensive prosecutions in the American legal system, requiring specialized attorneys, extensive expert testimony, and comprehensive mitigation investigations. The federal death penalty system includes multiple layers of review and appeal, with cases typically taking years or decades to reach final resolution due to the thoroughness required in capital punishment proceedings. The psychology of facing ultimate consequences. Criminal psychology research reveals that defendants facing potential death penalty experience unique and extreme psychological stress that differs qualitatively from other criminal proceedings. The finality of potential execution creates psychological effects that exceed even life imprisonment sentences. The mental health implications of death penalty proceedings affect not only defendants but also their families, legal teams, and all participants in the legal process. Questions arise about how someone who built their identity around success and control might process the possibility of state execution. Federal death penalty defendants often experience what psychologists term death row phenomenon, a combination of extreme isolation, constant stress, and the psychological burden of knowing that the state seeks to end their life. Legal experts note that the psychological pressure of death penalty cases can affect defendants' decision-making regarding plea negotiations, cooperation agreements, and legal strategy in ways that differ significantly from other criminal cases. The implications could suggest that facing potential execution might fundamentally alter how defendants approach their legal situation and what decisions they might make to avoid the ultimate penalty. Historical federal death penalty cases. The federal government has executed relatively few individuals since the death penalty was reinstated, with notable cases including Timothy McVeigh for the Oklahoma City bombing and various individuals convicted of murder for hire or terrorism charges. The case of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman demonstrates how federal prosecutors approached a high-profile defendant accused of violent crimes. Though prosecutors ultimately did not seek the death penalty despite evidence of multiple murders connected to his drug trafficking operations. Federal death penalty cases often involve extensive media coverage and public debate about the appropriateness of capital punishment for specific crimes and defendants. These cases generate significant legal and ethical discussion about the death penalty's role in federal justice. Legal precedents in federal death penalty cases establish the standards for when such charges are appropriate and what evidence must be presented to justify seeking the ultimate penalty against defendants. The entertainment industry has not typically been associated with federal death penalty cases, making any such prosecution unprecedented and likely to generate extensive legal and public debate about appropriate penalties for entertainment industry crimes. The legal impossibility in current charges. The federal charges currently filed against Diddy, racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation for prostitution do not carry death penalty provisions under federal law. These charges, while serious, are not among the specific federal crimes that can result in capital punishment. Legal experts note that federal death penalty charges would require evidence of additional crimes involving murder, terrorism, or other specific violent offenses that resulted in death. The current charges do not include allegations of homicide or other death penalty-eligible offenses. Federal prosecutors would need to file entirely new charges with death penalty specifications if evidence of death penalty-eligible crimes were discovered during ongoing investigations. This would require substantial additional evidence and Department of Justice approval. Questions arise about what theoretical evidence might lead to expanded charges in federal cases, though legal experts emphasize that speculation about death penalty charges should be based on actual evidence rather than hypothetical scenarios. The implications could suggest that federal investigations sometimes uncover evidence of more serious crimes than initially charged, though any such developments would require substantial new evidence and legal proceedings. Plea negotiations and death penalty pressure. The possibility of death penalty charges, even when theoretical, can significantly influence plea negotiations and cooperation decisions in federal cases. Defendants facing potential capital charges often prioritize avoiding death penalty exposure over other sentencing considerations. Federal prosecutors sometimes use the theoretical possibility of death penalty charges as leverage in plea negotiations, particularly when investigations are ongoing and additional evidence might emerge that could support capital charges. Legal experts note that cooperation agreements in cases with potential death penalty implications often involve defendants providing substantial assistance to prosecutors in exchange for agreements that death penalty charges will not be pursued. The psychology of death penalty pressure can influence decision-making in ways that differ significantly from other criminal cases, as defendants prioritize survival over other considerations that might normally influence legal strategy. Questions arise about how the theoretical possibility of expanded charges might affect ongoing legal proceedings and whether such considerations might influence cooperation decisions or plea negotiations. Media coverage and public perception. High-profile federal cases generate intense media coverage that can influence public perception of appropriate penalties for alleged crimes. The intersection of celebrity status and serious federal charges creates unique challenges for fair legal proceedings. Social media amplifies speculation about potential outcomes in celebrity criminal cases, often creating viral content that may not reflect actual legal possibilities or evidence in ongoing proceedings. Legal experts express concern that extensive media coverage might influence public opinion about appropriate penalties before legal proceedings are complete and all evidence has been presented in court. The entertainment industry's relationship with media coverage means that speculation about severe penalties can affect business relationships, public reputation, and industry standing regardless of actual legal outcomes. Questions arise about how media speculation regarding potential penalties might affect legal proceedings and whether viral theories about criminal charges could influence jury pools or witness testimony. The broader implications for entertainment industry accountability. Federal prosecutions involving entertainment industry figures raise questions about accountability standards for celebrities and wealthy individuals who may have operated with limited oversight or consequences throughout their careers. The entertainment industry culture of discretion and loyalty faces challenges when federal investigations examine alleged criminal activities that may have been protected by industry power structures and financial resources. Legal experts wonder whether federal prosecutions of entertainment industry figures might establish new precedents for accountability, and whether the outcomes might influence how future cases involving celebrities are investigated and prosecuted. The implications could suggest that the entertainment industry might face increased federal scrutiny if prosecutions demonstrate that celebrity status and wealth do not provide immunity from serious criminal consequences. Questions arise about how the entertainment industry might adapt its culture and business practices if federal prosecutions continue to examine activities that were previously considered private or protected by industry loyalty. Victim impact and justice considerations. Federal criminal cases involving allegations of victim exploitation raise complex questions about appropriate penalties and whether severe sentences serve justice for victims who may have suffered extensive harm over prolonged periods. The federal justice system attempts to balance punishment, deterrence, and victim justice when determining appropriate penalties for serious crimes, particularly those involving systematic exploitation or abuse of victims. Legal experts note that victim impact testimony and evidence of harm suffered by alleged victims often influence prosecutorial decisions about what charges to pursue and what penalties to seek in federal cases. Questions arise about how victim perspectives might influence decisions about appropriate penalties in federal cases involving allegations of systematic exploitation or criminal enterprise operations. The implications could suggest that victim impact considerations might influence prosecutorial strategy and penalty decisions in ways that exceed typical criminal cases when extensive victim harm is alleged. Constitutional and legal challenges. Federal death penalty cases involve extensive constitutional challenges and legal appeals that can take decades to resolve, with defendants' attorneys raising numerous legal issues about the constitutionality and application of capital punishment. The legal complexity of death penalty cases means that even when such charges are filed, the actual execution of defendants is rare due to the extensive appeals process and constitutional challenges that typically arise. Legal experts note that federal death penalty cases often face challenges related to procedural fairness, jury selection, evidence presentation, and the proportionality of penalties relative to alleged crimes. Questions arise about how constitutional challenges might affect federal death penalty cases and whether legal precedents might limit the application of capital punishment in certain types of cases. The implications could suggest that even when death penalty charges are theoretically possible, the practical reality of constitutional challenges and appeals might make such outcomes unlikely in many federal cases. Looking toward actual legal outcomes. As Diddy's federal case proceeds through the court system, the actual charges and potential penalties remain limited to those specified in the current indictment, which do not include death penalty provisions under federal law. Legal experts emphasize that speculation about theoretical penalties should be distinguished from actual legal possibilities based on current charges and available evidence in ongoing proceedings. The resolution of this case will likely focus on the specific charges filed by federal prosecutors rather than hypothetical penalties that would require entirely different evidence and legal proceedings. Questions arise about how public speculation regarding potential penalties might affect actual legal proceedings and whether realistic assessment of legal possibilities might provide better understanding of likely outcomes. The implications could suggest that focusing on actual charges and evidence might provide more accurate understanding of federal cases than speculation about theoretical penalties that exceed current legal allegations. If you're as shocked by the potential severity of federal penalties as we are, go ahead and like this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the federal death penalty should apply to non-murder cases? How do you feel about the ultimate penalty being a possibility in federal criminal justice? We want to hear your perspective on capital punishment and federal sentencing. Then hit subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss our coverage of these serious legal proceedings. Thanks for watching.